Today I have an expert advisor that will close all of your trades at a selected time. So you can use this to schedule closing trades before a news event, for example, or before the end of the week, or maybe even every day. It's up to you. This will either work on the symbol where you have loaded the expert advisor, or it can work across all symbols, effectively closing all of your trades. That's up to you. So the code's not too complex, and I'll be writing it for both Metatrader 4 and Metatrader 5. There are some slight differences between them. But it's not too complex, as I said, so let's get straight into the code now. Now I'm starting in the Metatrader5 Editor, and I will be writing the code for both Metatrader 4 and 5. So what I have is the Orchard folder underneath Experts, and inside that I've created a timed close folder because I like to keep my projects in separate folders. And here I've already created a timed close.mq4, which will be the MQ4 version. I've created the beginnings of a timed close.mq5, which is the MQ5 version. And all of the common code will go into this MQH file timed close. So you can see that all I have in the MQ4 file so far is a comment block, standard properties, and the include statement. And for Metatrader 4, I include this property strict to make sure that I'm using the version 600 and above code. And then just the include timed close.mqh. And remember, this is with the quotation marks, not the angle brackets, because timed close.mqh is here in the same folder as the MQ4 file. The timed close.mq5, very much the same. I've just got a comment block, property strict not needed for MT5, and then include the same timed close.mqh file. And in the timed close.mqh, where I've started, just a comment block again, properties, I've included property strict. Now these properties, copyright, link, and version, have actually no effect inside the include file. They're only read from the original files. That's why I've put them in both the MQ4 and the MQ5. So this is the way I begin my include files. So now, because I have this one include file, I can write common code for MQ4 and MQ5 in here. There is a little bit of code that is different in today's tutorial between MQ4 and 5, and I'll put that directly into the MQ4 and the 5 files when I get to it. You may know that I recently published a series on creating common code or a common toolbox for MQ4 and 5. I'm not using that today simply because the changes I would need to make to that for the work I'm doing today were actually bigger than the piece of work to create this timed close expert. So I might leave that for a different tutorial. So today there will be some code that's different between MT4 and MT5. So I'll start in the timed close, and the first thing I'm going to need are some inputs. And there are only 3 inputs. There's a close time, and I'm entering this as a string. So the default here is an empty string, which will cause this not to run. And I expect you, when you run this, to enter the time where you want to close trades in the format hours, minutes, seconds. And there will be a test that I build into the code later to make sure that the time you've entered is in hours, minutes, and seconds. There is no date component to this, so if you're going to run this expert to close your trades, it needs to be run within 24 hours of the close time. So it will close at the next time that matches your input. I've also got a magic number here, which is defaulting to 0. So manually entered trades that you just enter through the terminal all have a magic number of 0. If you're running an expert advisor, it's probably creating trades with its own magic number. So by using this, I can say I only want to close the manually entered trades with magic number 0, or I can specify the magic number used by an expert to close all of the trades from that expert, or as I say here, less than 0, any negative number here will cause this to close all trades. And input this symbol is set to true. So this will only monitor for trades with the same symbol where this expert is loaded, unless you set this to false. If that becomes false, then it will monitor all trades throughout your account. But by default, I'm just saying I'm only going to monitor trades on the symbol for the chart where this is loaded. So only close current symbol. I need 2 global scope variables. I'm calling one G enabled, which means that this expert is enabled to run, and another one where I'm going to be storing the close time. So remember, this is being entered as a string. I'm going to convert that to an actual date time. Now in the onInit function, and this is calling a number of functions that I'm about to write. So I'm setting the enabled flag, this bool G enabled, I'm setting that to the return value from par's close time. This par's close time function will take that input, make sure that it's a valid time, and then store that value in G close time, and then return a boolean indicating whether the time entered was a valid time or not. So that will go to G enabled. The next statement here, if G enabled, which means par's close time was successful, then I'm updating G enabled to be the result of setup timer, because I'm going to be using a timer to determine when to close trades. I'm not going to be relying on tick because sometimes the markets go quiet. So I'm actually going to be using a timer for that, and if setting up the timer is successful, then G enabled will be true. And if I get through these two statements and G enabled is false, so if not G enabled, then I just want to terminate. I'm using the expert remove function, which will completely remove this expert, because once this has failed, I don't want it hanging around there to close your trades at some unexpected time. And both of these functions, setup timer and par's close time, will display the appropriate error messages if they're going to fail. So you've already been told there's going to be a failure, and this will just close out the expert and then return. If you're going to use expert remove, the next statement after that must be a return. So I'm returning there, and assuming I get to this point, then the system is enabled. I have a valid close time in G close time, and I just return init succeeded and then carry on. For this expert, I actually have nothing to put in the on DNet or on tick, but I'll just create those functions anyway. Because as I said, I'm not relying on tick to determine when to close trades. I'm going to be using the timer for that. And inside the timer, I just have one call to a function. And that's check timed close. Now I could put all of this code inside the on timer, but I'm putting it in a separate function just in case at some point in the future I wanted to or needed to call this function from somewhere else. Rather than duplicate all of that code, I put it one time into a separate function, then I can use it from anywhere. Let's begin these functions now with the par's close time function. So what I'm saying here, if the input close time str, which is the actual input value, is an empty string, which means you basically haven't entered anything, then a simple message box, no time specified, exiting. Message box will pop up on screen and wait for you to respond to the message box. I'm using that rather than a print because I want to make sure that you see that this expert is not running, so you don't inadvertently think that you've got something out there that will close the trades for you and it's actually not running. So no time specified, exiting, that comes up in the message box. It returns false, and as I said here, if this returns false, then G enabled becomes false, which means we go down here and remove the expert. Now the next thing I want to do is check that the time that you've entered is a valid time format in hours, minutes and seconds. So here is the code that I use for this, and this is not foolproof, but it's reasonably good and I use it quite a lot. So first I'm using the string to time to convert that input close time str into a date time. It comes back in this close time. And then I'm converting that close time back into a time string using time to string. And I'm passing in time minutes, time seconds. So this or symbol. So time minutes or time seconds will return a string that contains the time in hours, minutes and seconds format. I'm just storing that in a test variable, string. And that means if the input close time string is a valid time, then I'll get a valid close time. When I convert that back to a string in test, it should be the same as the input. And that's where this test comes in. If test is not equal to the input close time string, then for some reason, the time you entered could not be converted to a date time and then converted back to an equal string. So I just display a message box again, invalid time format, use hours, minutes, seconds, exiting, and return false. So at this point I know that you've entered a valid time in the format hours, minutes and seconds, and what I want to do is store that time in the global variable, the G close time. By now I've converted the input time into a date time in this close time. In Metatrader there are actually three times. There's UTC time, server time and local time. When you use string to time to convert a value and that value doesn't have a date component, the date will be filled in from the UTC time. The documentation actually says from current time, but what it means is the UTC time. So that might mean that this date time resulting from this conversion is a different date to the date you're expecting. It could be a day earlier or a day later, depending where you are in the time zones. I'm going to be monitoring the server time to determine when to close, so the time you'll be entering should match the expected server time where you want to close your trades. But because the string to time is converting this and using UTC time, or using the UTC date as the date component of this time, you may get a close time that is a day later or a day earlier than you expect. So I'm going to go through a little loop here to just make sure that this is the very next time matching the server time. So this looks a little odd, but what I'm saying is that if the current close time, so I've done this date time conversion, is greater than the current time, and time current is the server time. So if the time you entered is greater than the current server time, then I'm going to subtract 1 day, 86,400 seconds. And I'm going to keep doing that until the close time is not greater than the current time. So I've moved backwards to the most recent close time before the current server time. And then I'm going to move forward again because I don't want to be looking for a time in the past. I want to look for a time in the future. So I simply reverse that. While close time is less than the current time, I'm going to be adding a day. So it seems a little odd that I'm moving backwards and then forwards. But if the close time was already an extra day ahead, I want to bring it back. And once I brought it back, I need to move it forward. If the close time is already a day late, depending where you are ahead or behind UTC time, if the close time is already a day late, then I need to move it forward anyway. So by following these two loops, I'll move the close time back to the most recent time before time current, and then I'll move it forward again to the closest time after the current time. And then I simply assign that value to this G close time. Once I've done that, I'm just going to print a message in the log. Trades and orders will be closed at placeholder %s, and that's the time to string conversion of that close time, including the date, minutes and seconds. So you can see in the experts tab where this will be closing your trades. And the next function I had was the setup timer function. So as I say here, this is just a simple approach. I'm going to be calling the timer every 1 second. Now I did have some code that I was going to use here where I simply calculated a very long timeout that would effectively run the timer just before the trades were due to close. But then I decided that I was adding extra complication. It would have saved some compute cycles, but a 1 second loop is not going to be very much of a strain on your computer. If you want to, you can increase this and possibly even look to see if you're getting close to the time and then bring it back down again later. But I've taken this simple approach now. So I'm setting seconds to 1. You can change this if you like just here. And then I'm using event set timer, which sets up the trigger to call, let me scroll back up here, to call this on timer function. So without that event set timer, the on timer function doesn't get called. So I'm setting event set timer to number of seconds. If you want something smaller than a second, then you'll have to use event set millisecond timer and specify the duration in milliseconds. But I'm choosing at the moment, I'm going to call this every 1 second. And that returns a Boolean result. If the result is false, then again, a message box, so it's popping up on the screen, failed to set the timer, exiting, and I return the result, which is a true or false, so that then the expert will simply exit if this returns false. So that's a very simple setting up of the timer. And then the last function I have here is that check timed close. So that's the one that's being called here every time the timer runs. Now, when you see the rest of the code, there should be no reason why we will ever get to this stage where G enabled is false and we've come into this check timed close. But just in case, I like to be safe. So if not G enabled, then I kill the timer, remove the expert and return, and effectively close this up. I'm using the expert remove here and above because once this has fired and closed all of your trades, I don't want it to accidentally hang around and close your trades the next day or any other trades that you might place. So this is meant to run once, close all the trades that exist, and then exit. And if you want to reload it for a different time, you have to load it back onto the chart again. Now, as I said, this is going to be called every 1 second, so it's probably going to be called many times before you get to the time where you want to close the trades. So I just include now a test to see if I've reached that time and exit if not. So if time current is less than that G close time, then I return. If we get past this point, then I know that we've reached that time, or we may have gone past it, and this is the point where we want to close trades. And this is where I want to be careful. So first I'm printing a message to say that I'm attempting to close trades and orders. That's just for logging purposes. I'm including this integer value retries because sometimes closing trades fails, and I'm going to retry because we want to make sure that you do close those trades. So I'm just setting that to 10. It will try 10 times to close all of the trades. So then I have a loop for int I equals 0 while I is less than retries and G enabled. So once we actually close all the trades, G enabled will be turned off, but we'll also exit with this expert remove, but we'll get to that. But this is just being careful. So I'll loop through for 10 times I++. If close all, now that's another function, and that's the function that will be different between Metatrader 4 and 5, so we'll move to that next. If close all, and that returns a boolean that says I've successfully closed all trades, or all of the trades selected, whether they are just for this chart symbol or for all symbols, or for specific magic numbers or all magic numbers. If close all, G enabled equals false, which is kind of a pointless statement, but I've included it there anyway because the expert remove should take care of everything. And then I just print a log message. All trades and orders are closed now, exiting. So that will appear in the experts tab, and then expert remove, and then the return statement, and that will completely terminate this expert, so it won't attempt to close those trades again. So these statements will only happen if close all is successful and closes all trades. If we get to this point, then we haven't removed the expert, we haven't returned, therefore I've been unable to close all of the trades, and I'm printing an error message, could not close all trades and orders, retrying, and because the timer is still active, it will come back in here 1 second later and come back through and try this again. So that is the check timed close function. Now all that's left is the close all function, and that is different between Metatrader 4 and 5. I'm in the Metatrader 4 editor at the moment, so I'm going to update this timed close.mq4. If I put the function in here, then it will only be included for Metatrader 4, so I can put the Metatrader 4 specific version here, and then later I'll switch to the Metatrader 5 editor, and I'll do the same thing here with the Metatrader 5 specific code. So beginning with Metatrader 4, I just typed in the whole thing at once. The close all function is a boolean. I first set my result to true, which is what will be returned. If nothing goes wrong, then this will be true at the end, and I'll be returning a true value from close all. The orders total function in Metatrader 4 gives me the total number of trades and stop and limit orders. So then I'm looping through them from the last to the first. If you're going to be closing trades and orders, you should be counting backwards, because each time you close one, the stack collapses, and if you were moving up the stack, you would be skipping trades. So for int I equals count -1, which is the last, while I is greater than or equal to 0, I minus minus. Next statement is order select, which is attempting to retrieve that order from the list. And the arguments to that are I being the position, select by position, because there are two modes, I can select by position or by ticket number, and mode trades, because this can also select from history. So I'm selecting the ith trade by position from the list of current trades, not from history. That order select returns a boolean, so I'm testing if not order select, then result equals false, and I won't process this order any further. I'll move on to the next. As soon as result becomes false, it will stay false, so I'll continue to close any remaining orders, but result will stay false. This will close as much as it can, return that false from the close all, which will trigger this to come back in again with the retries. So then else. So if order select is successful, else. Now I need to compare if we're using the correct symbol or magic number. So the first test, if input this symbol is false, then it means I'm testing all symbols, or the order symbol for this current trade matches the chart symbol. So I'm either testing for all symbols by saying false here, or only for the chart symbol with this test. So if the symbol matches, then I'm testing the magic number. And I said you can set magic number less than 0 to close all magic numbers. So if the input magic number is less than 0, or if the magic number on the order is equal to the input magic number. And then there's one more test, because the method for closing trades and orders is different. So if the order type is an order type buy or a sell, then I'm going to be using the order close method. And I'm using result ampersand equals. This ampersand equals means that at the end of this statement, result will effectively be result and order close. So if result comes into this as already false, it will stay false. If result comes into this as true and order close is false, then result will become false. If result comes in here as true and order close is true, then result will stay true. So this will effectively switch result to false at the first failure, and it will just stay false, although we'll continue to close the remaining trades. So if the order type is a buy or sell, order close, passing in the order ticket, order lots, the order close price, which will be the current market close price for that order, and 0, I'm just allowing 0 slippage here. So 0 means unlimited. If it's not a type buy or a type sell, then it must be a buy stop, sell stop, buy limit, sell limit, and in that case the statement is order delete. Same thing with the ampersand equals, so result ampersand equals order delete and then the ticket number. So that will loop through all of this and eventually return result. So if I've managed to close all of the orders in the first pass, that's great. If this returns false, then you've seen that the retries will keep trying this until I close all of the orders. Now, at that point, mentioning the retries, remember that there are times where the broker is closed, and that is often several minutes before the end of day and for several minutes after the start of day. So if you're using this to close all of your trades before the day or the week ends, then you need to be aware of how early you need to run this before that end of day. Because if you're trying to run this, for example, at 11:59 p.m. and your broker has stopped trading at 11:58, this won't help you at all. It will retry and will keep retrying until the next day, but you'll effectively miss that end of day close time. So just be aware of when your broker is open. Now that's the Metatrader 4 version. I'm just going to compile this to make sure I haven't made a mistake. And that was good. And now I'll switch to the Metatrader 5 editor and I'll do this same function for Metatrader 5. Now I'm in the Metatrader 5 editor and I'm going to be using the ctrade class to close these orders and trades. So I need to include trade.mqh. This is supplied with Metatrader 5. So include trade/trade.mqh, and then I declare a variable of type ctrade. I'm just calling that trade. Now the beginnings of the close all function are the same. It's still a boolean called close all, and remembering that only this will be included if I compile the MQ5 file, and only the other version will be included if I compile the MQ4. I'm still setting bool result to true at the beginning of this, but in Metatrader 5, orders and trades are kept separately, so I need to actually have two different loops, one to close the trades and one to close the orders. So this is the loop to close the trades. I get the count in this case from positions total because they are considered to be positions in Metatrader 5. I'm still counting backwards for int I equals count -1 while I is greater than or equal to 0, I minus minus. I then retrieve an individual position with this position get ticket, passing the position number. So that will both return the ticket number, and it returns it as a uint, but I'm casting that to an int. So I've cast that to int ticket, and it also loads that position into memory. Now a test, if the ticket is greater than 0, means I've been successful in retrieving that ticket. If not, So let's just jump down here to the if ticket is greater than 0, else result equals false. This is matching the failure to use order select in Metatrader 4. So if ticket is not greater than 0, then I get a false result here, but I'll continue to loop through the other positions. And then here's the same tests. If input this symbol is false, or position get string, and the argument to that is position underscore symbol, so that gets the symbol for the currently selected position is equal to symbol, and to match the magic number, it's still input magic number is less than 0, or using position get integer, and the argument to that is position underscore magic, if that matches the input magic number. So if those two tests are successful, then I want to close the position. I use the trade object, this one that I created, trade.position close, and pass in that ticket number. And that also returns a boolean, so I'm using the same syntax here, result ampersand equals trade.position close. Now if you've read the documentation on Metatrader 5, you will know that there is a syntax for position close where you can simply pass in a symbol and it will close the position for that symbol. If you're using a netting account, then you can use that and it will close the entire position for the symbol. But if your account is not netting, that will only close the first ticket for that symbol. So I've actually chosen to not use that syntax at all, and I'm just going through and individually closing every position rather than worry about whether I'm going to be closing everything for a symbol or not. And so that takes care of everything for the trades. I also want to close any open pending orders because you don't want to leave those hanging around that might be activated. The structure of this is almost the same. I've already declared count here as an integer, so I don't use int this time. I just say count equals, and I'm getting orders total. So orders will get me the stop limit for buy and sell. The same loop for int I equals count minus 1, counting down with I minus minus. I'm still retrieving a ticket number, but this time it's with order get ticket. I'm still testing ticket greater than 0. I have the same tests for symbol and magic number, but the functions here are order get string and order get integer. And then the command is trade.order delete ticket with result ampersand equals. So this is exactly the same. I've basically replaced positions total or positions functions with order functions and order delete instead of position close. And so that will close all of the pending orders for me. Now I haven't mentioned it earlier because I thought it might be obvious, but if you're running this and it's going to close all of your positions or all of your trades, and you have an expert running that might open new trades, then obviously this isn't going to stop that expert from opening another trade. So that's just up to you to manage. But this will find all of the trades and orders that you have open in your system that match the symbol and magic number specifications and close them at the assigned time. And I'll just finish that off. Return result. And I'll compile this to make sure I haven't made any syntax errors. And that worked. So I'm going to go now to Metatrader 5. I won't demonstrate this for both 4 and 5. I'll demonstrate it in Metatrader 5 by creating some orders and trades and then running this expert to close them down. So I have a Metatrader 5 terminal open here. I've placed a buy here on the euro and a buy stop on the euro. And you can see the buy here and the buy stop here. I've also placed some trades on the GBP USD. So I've sell and a buy stop and a sell limit. What I'm going to do first is run the expert to only close for the symbol on the current chart. And because these are all placed manually, I haven't got an expert running, I'm not going to worry about setting the magic number. I'm going to leave that at 0. So I bring that onto my chart, allow algo trading. Algo trading's turned on for the platform. My inputs, my current server time is 0520. And I have only close current symbol true and magic number 0. Let that run. The expert's running. I'll skip this forward in the editor. And there at 0521, it has closed all of these euro trades, but you can see all of the GBP trades are still here because I said only close the current symbol. Before I go on and do the next part of the demonstration, I'll just show what happens. And if I look at the Experts tab, here is the beginning of the expert. Trades and orders will be closed at 0521. Attempting to close trades, all trades and orders closed, now exiting, and then expert removed, and the expert's been completely removed from the chart. Before I go any further, I'm going to try to load this up. I'll just leave that blank for now. OK. No time specified, exiting, and the expert has been removed again. I'll try entering an invalid time. 2500. OK, invalid time format, exiting, and that will exit. Now I'll just add some trades back to the Euro USD, and then I'll set to close both currencies. So now I've added into the Euro USD, I've got a sell limit and a sell trade here. Bring the expert onto the chart. The time is 5:22. I'll set that at 0523.30. I will change this to a negative number and only close current symbol to false. So this will close all symbols and all magic numbers. And there at 0523.30, all trades have been closed on both charts. I'll just show you one other thing. If we look at the logs here, this is the beginning of the expert. Trades and orders will be closed at 5:23:30. Attempting to close orders is a system message. All trades and orders are closed now, exiting, and exit removed. If you look at the timestamps on these, I set to close these at 0523. Now this is my local time showing in this timestamp, so it's 12:23:29, 7:57. So there's a slight difference in milliseconds there. You're going to have to expect this. And then there's been a slight delay here as trades are being closed, so they're not all going to be closed exactly at the time you specify, but they'll be closed very close to this. So just expect that there will be some slight delay, so don't try to set this time too close to where you need it to close. Allow yourself a minute or so just to be safe in case there are retries, and remember to allow for problems where your broker may have a shutdown period, and in particular if you're coming up to news events, there may be liquidity issues, so you might want to close earlier so you avoid getting caught in times where the spread widens too much. So that's everything for an expert that will close all of your trades or your select trades at a specified time to allow you to exit ahead of a news event or close of day or close of week. If you found this useful, then please click the like button, and if you'd like to see more of our videos, click subscribe, and then if you click the bell icon, you'll be notified when we release the next video. Thank you for watching.